In 2007, the Hoosiers released the song Worried About Ray. It was very popular at the time, but it took a while for the meaning of this song to really resonate. But now in 2024, with the release of Juno, the meaning has become obvious. Orbital Ray is the most powerful ult in the game. Juno is a fundamental part of the meta, so there's never been a more important time to heed the Hoosiers' warning and worry about Ray. And now, the best way to deal with worry, to quell worry, is with knowledge. So we're going to try and gain some knowledge right now by looking at several Rays and Ray trades from the recent series between Crazy Raccoon and Team Falcons in the upper bracket final of OWCS Asia. One of the key reasons Orbital Ray is so powerful is because it can affect your entire team. So you press the button, the Ray goes. If everyone stands inside it, all 5 of your team is getting the benefit of this. And this is why ults like Kitsune Rush are also so powerful. It's why Bongo back in the day was so powerful, because every single member of the team can benefit from it. And this one has the benefits of Bongo. It does damage boost, it does healing, and it moves forward, so you can even quite actively push with it, unlike some ults like Kitsune Rush where it's just in a fixed location. So this is why the ult is so powerful. It also means when you use the ult, it's super important your team is on the same page, because to get the effects of the Ray, everyone needs to stand in the Ray. So if your Juno is pressing Ray and you're not standing in the Ray, chances are you're probably throwing a little bit, if not a lot. This is really important for certain heroes that like to play towards the back of a map or deeper angles more often to make sure they actually step forward and rotate in the Ray to get maximum value out of it. Now, with those base ideas in mind, let's take a look at a few examples. This is from Varuna Sapping. This is map number 2, one that Falcons will go on to win. And this is the first Orbital Ray trade of the fight. We can see here that Falcons are walking up to push in his corner. They want to push with Ray, not that Ray. They want to push with Chio's Ray. So they're going to drop it on the corner as they come round. And there's a few important things to note when we've seen this first trade come through from Chio. The first is what Chio's going to do is Chio isn't going to press his ult here and then have it walk forward here, because even though the Ray moves forward with you, and this is a good thing, it moves quite slowly. So Chio's actually going to move forward to the corner and start his Ray here going aggressively. So they're trying to swing the corner with Ray. You'll see a lot of teams doing this with Kitsune Rush and Window as well. And these ults that are either in a fixed position or like Ray, quite slow moving, you want to try and make sure you use them forward so you get to take the space. So when they press the Ray on this corner, this is all the space they get to push into, and they get to chase with it a little bit as well. So you'll see all the good Junos do this. They'll take a step forward as they use their Ray so their team can push with it. Likewise, as you can see, everyone from Team Falcons, we are all in the Ray. Now we're going to see Shu mirror Ray back here, but Shu actually makes a mess of it. We can take a look at it here. Shu's going to drop the Ray. You can see Shu actually wants to do essentially a backwards Ray here. Now you don't see a lot of backwards Rays and sidewards Rays. I think they're a little bit trickier to get right, a bit more situational. We see Shu go for one here. The problem Shu runs into though is because he's put the Ray in this path so his team can sort of kite with it, stay in it, even though Falcons are pushing. But what's happened is because Shu wants to send it this way, he's actually swung out wide here, which means all of a sudden now, if you look at the formations between the two teams, Falcons are in a pretty good formation, right? We've got our tank at the front. Everyone's playing pretty groups around our tank. We've got our Juno just at the back who's going to swing with rockets. But when I look at the formation from Crazy Raccoon, I have my Orisa, my Briggs actually in front of my Orisa, my Cass probably is in formation, good job Lip, cheers pal. Also Heesang probably in formation as well, but Shu is so far out of formation that he's going to get obliterated here because Shu's going to swing with the torpedoes. Nice and easy. We're going to see that Crazy Raccoon are going to try and invest ults to try and make up for this. Lip's going to go with High Noon. Heesang's going to drop the barrage. They're going to throw a Terror Surge in as well. Everything. But because they got so much value out of that initial Ray and they were able to stay in the Ray for the entirety of its duration, you'll actually see that despite investing all those ults, 4 ultimates Crazy Raccoon invested, compared to just for High Noon and just for Ray from Falcons, Falcons still win the fight. And that is the power of Ray. If you can get your whole team pushing forward in the Ray, super high value. Obviously, we can also see a bit of a downside here. If you get the Ray wrong, you end up wasting a huge opportunity like Shu did here. Now, in a second example, we're going to see both Junos try and use their Orbital Ray in the same way. We're going to see Shu, rather than try and use a sideways Ray or a backwards Ray to try and kite, we're going to see him use it aggressively around this corner. Likewise, Shu is going to use his Ray on the low ground. Very similar idea. Want to swing the corner, want to push with it, get all their team involved. But we're going to see very different value come out from both these Orbital Rays. So as we take a look, we see both Rays come in slightly earlier for Shu. And I think, well, going first with this ult is very good just because of if you can get that initial damage chunk, it's a really hard thing for the other team to recover from. But the bigger problem here is if you look at who is involved in the Ray, we talk about formation a lot in these type of brawl comps. But you can see Jumpin is at the front, Chorong is with the Ray. You see Shu is able to swing and get this big torpedo as well. Meanwhile, Hanbin is pushing with his Ray, so Hanbin is getting value out of a Ray. Chio's also managed to swing with it. But because of how this has happened, if you look, it gets hard to see through the beams, but if you look here, you can see that actually Stalker and Fielder, they're not able to get into their Ray here because of how it's been used. So even though Chio has swung the corner with it, he's not actually managed to get his entire team in it here. So as the fight plays out, you're going to see they just get absolutely decimated by Shu's torpedoes. Again, that Ray torpedo timing, one you always want to make sure you hit because it just gets value almost every time. The most important thing, though, is that Crazy Raccoons were able to get more value out of their makers. They were able to stay in the Ray. And we'll see this pattern as we go through. Now, the ability to keep everyone in the Ray to make sure you get that value is super crucial. And it's easy on paper. Everyone just stand in the Ray. Just stand there at the right time. But it's hard to do in the moment. It takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of concentration. And one mistake from one person can absolutely ruin it for the entire team. Now, one of the most powerful ways to deal with ults like Ray and Kitsune Rush and Window and these ults that have a very big influence over a fixed area is just to disengage them, to walk away from them. So if someone drops a slow move in Ray and it's coming through here, but you can just kite back, you'll be able to disengage the ult for free. You'll look really smart. You get to pat yourself on the back and you have ult advantage going into the next fight. Now, of course, these are two very high level teams. They know that the other team is going to try and disengage where possible. So it's always important you find a way to connect with your ultimate. And what that means in reality is you want to make sure that when you press your button, whether it's Orbital Ray or Kitsune Rush or Window or anything like that, you are going to be able to immediately see and shoot important players. So like in this situation, if she wanted to drop it around the corner, would seem quite reasonable, at least in terms of the positioning of both teams, because they can start shooting these players immediately and probably put a decent chunk of damage on them. And this is an important concept to have when you are the Juno player, and it's also an important concept for your team to understand, so that you're trying to use your Rays in situations you can actually get value out of them. Now, another way to make sure you can connect with your Orbital Ray is to use it mid-fight once the other teams are already committed or a little bit closer, and that's what we're going to see Shu try and do here. So as you can see, Lip has died in this high noon, and Crazy Raccoon, they are trying to back up around this corner to get away from the danger. They're going to try and do exactly that, but as they get to the corner here, you're going to see Shu is going to make the decision that everyone's committed forward a little bit. I can see Hanbin's really close. He's just used Fortify. There's a great chance for me to turn back with Ray here. They're in a relatively committed position. Feel like I can hit this guy. I can hit this guy. We're all ready to go and get value. So he's going to drop for Ray, and you're going to see Chio respond immediately. I think one thing to note while we're here, you see Chio doesn't wait to try and get a much later ultimate. Like sometimes with Lucio beat, you might try and delay your beat as much as you can, so your beat lasts longer. The second beat often gets more value. I feel like with this Orbital Ray, it's so powerful that you have to mirror straight away. You either have to disengage if you can, but if you're in a situation where you can't disengage, you're too committed, or you want to take the fight in that area, I think you have to mirror almost immediately. Match the ult, because if you lose that initial trade and you don't get the burst, it can be really hard to recover from. So Chio's going to drop it straight away here, so I think this is good from Chio. Good decision. And as you can see, both teams seem in relatively reasonable formation in terms of the tanks at the front. Everyone is able to follow with it. Maybe Shu's going to have a little bit of a hard time going around, but Juno's got good mobility, so it'll be fine. But as we watch this fight play out, we're going to see a key mistake, as we talked about in the previous one. If one person makes a mistake, it can be absolutely brutal. So, Rays are going to be traded. Both teams are going to try and stay in it. But as you see, all the Falcons are doing a pretty good job at staying in it. But Fielder actually bashes backwards here. I don't know if it's a miscommunication, just a mistake. He sees something he's too scared of. But what happens now, as both teams are going to effectively trade sides of the map to move into their Orbital Ray, Fielder is going to be left absolutely stranded here. You can see from the overhead quite clearly here, both teams doing a pretty reasonable job of staying in their Ray, with the exception of our man Fielder, who finds himself absolutely stranded, tries to bravely and valiantly take everyone on and swing, but timing not good with the rest of his team. You see Hanbin goes in with a Terror Surge, and Falcons are able to recover this a little bit and turn it into a dogfight thanks to committing that additional ultimate. But you can see how it's so important that every single member of a team is on the same page with this ultimate usage. Here we're going to see another mirrored Ray situation where both teams are going to use it, but neither team really gets value out of the Orbital Ray here. So we can take a look as they come in. Very similar situation to one we saw before. We're going to see Shu drop the Orbital Ray. You did see Shu actually use his torpedoes beforehand, so small mistake here. Really want to be swinging that corner with the Ray. I think, again, there's maybe an argument that actually the Ray Shu did last time across this high ground might just be the better version of the Ray. As this fight descends, we're actually going to see Stalker make a play where he's actually really far back from the Ray trade and he's dropping High Noon. Now, I think high nooning like this to try and counter out a Ray is really reasonable. because as everyone swings this corner from Crazy Raccoon, they're going to be walking into this Deadeye. As long as you can try and body block a little bit to stop the enemy Orisa cancelling it with Javelin or something, seems really reasonable to stop and get him Ray. But I don't like it here because Chio has mirrored the Ray as well. So now Falcons are getting pulled in two directions. They want to stay in their Ray and push forward, but they need to make sure they pocket Stalker here. So it ends up being two ults to basically do the same job here. The High Noon, I think, would have stopped this Orbital Ray, or mirroring this Orbital Ray would have given them a decent chance. Meanwhile, just off our screen, Proper's actually made a 1v1 attempt to try and take down Lip in the back here, and Shu, you can see, switched on as always, will be turning and will be pocketing Lip through that. So as the Orbital Ray plays out, what we're going to see is because they're pocketing Stalker, they're not actually able to commit him with their Ray, so it ends up being a bit of a wasted ultimate here from Chio. And as such, Crazy Raccoon are going to see, well, we can't keep going with a Ray because of a High Noon, but they've used theirs, so they're just going to take a step back and be happy with the fact that they traded one ult for two ults. Seems reasonable enough, and it's going to seem even more reasonable because Proper's committed really far behind and will be taken down as a result. Now, they do manage to trade Heesang at least, walking forward a little bit with a tail end here of the Orbital Ray, and it descends into a big ult fight. But I want to focus on the Rays for these videos, and while I think there are some ultimates that complement it very well, like Dragon Blade and Terror Surge, because they're good pushing ultimates, stuff like High Noon, I don't really think fits in using your Ray aggressively here. So don't like this combo at all. Don't know if it was intentional by Falcons, but just a bit all over the place from Falcons in this fight in terms of honing in the back, Proper making a solo play, and Orbital Ray in the middle. It just doesn't really add up, but they've already got a massive lead, so I reckon it'll work out for them. Now, this last example we're going to look at from Runasapi will actually be the final fight of the map, and we find ourselves in a situation where Falcons are attacking the spawn of Crazy Raccoons, and they actually have Orbital Ray advantage because Shu died in the previous fight, so Chio's been able to charge it slightly quicker. And while all the examples we've looked at so far have been mirrored Ray situations where both teams are using it and trying to jockey for position, this is a more clear, we have Orbital Ray advantage, let's use it aggressively. So, if we watch Chio again, we're going to see he's just going to drop it on the objective here. Nice, easy one for him. He's just going to send it to follow the Carton. And this is where Orbital Ray is really at its most powerful. We talked about ultimates like Kitsune Rush, Window, Orbital Ray. Because they're either fixed or quite slow moving, you can always disengage them. But if you get to a situation like this, where it's a cap point or it's an objective point, and you use the Orbital Ray on that point to try and cap it, this is when the ult's at its most powerful. Because what can Crazy Raccoon do? Can they walk away? Can they disengage? Well, no, because they'll C9 the point and lose the map. So it forces them, they use the objective pressure and it forces them to take the fight. And this is where Orbital Ray's at its best. And really, once Chio presses this button here, this is unlosable, really, for Falcons from this point. So even though we don't see a lot of them because both teams are running Juno and there's a lot of mirroring going on, these Juno advantage situations where you have ult advantage are super important to convert and should be really slam dunk fights if you can nail it. Now we're going to look at some examples from Suravasa as well. This is first point. Again, it's an even Orbital Ray situation, and it's going to be Shu who's going to be starting it this time. Crazy Raccoon are on point. Shu's going to start it, and we're going to see them push forward to try and get value out of this Orbital Ray. Now, it's very good because, again, Falcons are forced to fight for the objective here. Very difficult. So really, Chio needs to mirror. But I think in this one, Chio goes too late. We talked about how that time difference is super important. If you miss a window where you match the ult immediately, you can often leave yourself in a situation you can't recover from. And this is going to demonstrate that perfectly. We're going to see Chio hit it back. It's not the worst timing in the world, but you can see Hanbin's going to take this massive chunk. So even though formation-wise, they're in a pretty reasonable position to stay in their Orbital Ray here and meet Jumbin, HP-wise, Hanbin is not at all in a reasonable situation to deal with this. Meanwhile, all of Crazy Raccoon are in a beautiful situation. Everyone's standing in the ult. Everyone's going to be getting good value. We can take another look at it now in slow motion to see exactly what happened. We see the Ray come in. We see the torpedoes charge up. And keep your eyes on the torpedoes, because there are 4 torpedoes coming, and because they tried to disengage and kite a little bit first around this corner, what they've actually done is they've drawn all the torpedoes to this corner. So because Hanbin can't quite get round the corner because, well, this is just a very difficult distance to kite because it's quite long, what you're going to see is every single torpedo is going to hit Hanbin. That's when this huge burst of damage comes from. This is the situation Hanbin can't recover from because he's used his spin and his fortify to try and get on point here. And it's just a situation they can't recover from. Heesang pounces on the opportunity. Heesang will jump in We'll finish that one off. And as you can see, Proper's going to make a play. But look at these players playing in the Ray. They're going to get hit by torpedoes. They're going to get hit by damage boost torpedoes. They're going to get hit by Proper. But it doesn't matter. The Ray is going to do so much healing on them. And they can clean everything up. And this is the importance of the timing with the Ray. If you're going to mirror it, it has to be immediate. To be fair to Falcons here, I think because they really needed to cap the point, it would have been more in their interest for Chio to actually try and go first with this. Use the Ray on point to help take the space. Obviously, you have a risk of a disengage, but I think this area is a very hard disengage area. In London, we would call it a cum zone. It's a very difficult area to try and move back from because it's so open and exposed. And it's part of the reason Falcons have such a hard time here trying to disengage. Now, this next example is actually going to be very short because Shu makes a pretty critical error here. They managed to kill Chio in this fight, which means they actually have Orbital Ray advantage, even though they've lost their tank in this sort of scrappy final fight, or potentially final fight here. So they need to win this one, Crazy Raccoon. They can't afford to give the flip, so Shu is going to try and clutch, but I think he just makes the decision a little bit too late. A rare moment of hesitancy from Shu, and as such, he's going to take the dig first. He's going to drop the Orbital Ray. He's going to die as he's casting it, thanks to Stalker, and now all of a sudden, they're not going to get value out of this. I think, to be fair to Shu, even though Orbital Ray can be a powerful ult to turn the fight, we saw him do this on Runa Sapi after they lost Lip and they were getting pushed upon. This Orbital Ray, when he drops it here, how on earth is Lip going to get into this? Heesan can maybe group up, but even if they group up in this Ray, how are they fighting these people on high ground? I think we talk about some of the previous ideas about how you want to make sure you connect with your Orbital Ray, how you want as many, or if not, your entire team in the Orbital Ray. It's really hard to do it in this situation. I think with Orbital Ray, it's so much better in these situations where you can use it in a setup and controlled fashion. I think clutching with it is way less consistent and very difficult. And we're going to see Shu pay the ultimate price for that one here. But Crazy Raccoon aren't stupid. They're going to realize they're in this situation, and the eagle-eyed among you will also realize this is a tough situation as Crazy Raccoon have 0 ults, but Orbital Ray, Blade, High Noon, nearly a Terra Surge, big advantage here for Falcons. So this is right after point C that we just saw. What we're going to see is Crazy Raccoon take a fast fight, not near the objective, not even before the point is unlocked, just to try and force the ultimate out. We talked about good way to deal with Orbital Ray. You can mirror it quickly and then try and play to get in position or stay in your Ray better than the other team, or you can disengage it if you have the opportunity. Another way you can work around it is by taking a fight, trying to force the Orbital Ray, you lose it, but then you get to come back with your own Orbital Ray advantage. So if we watch this fight from Crazy Raccoon, we're going to see him come around the corner. We're going to see him play very aggressively here. Field is a little bit split coming back from respawn. It really doesn't actually go very well for Crazy Raccoons at all. They've lost the neutral quite hard here. But Chio's going to see that they're all quite committed, and that's going to convince him he can press the Orbital Ray and get value. And while Chio is correct, he can press this Orbital Ray, he can get value. One, they're actually dealing with the Orisa, so they're not getting huge value out of this Orbital Ray anyway. So they deal with a fight, they clean it up, they don't trade. Cool. But they will get first cap, but they're not going to get huge percentage over it. And if we look at the next fight as it comes around, well, actually, all of a sudden, this starts to look like a much more reasonable situation for them to take in the next fight compared to the situation where they had a big Orbital Ray disadvantage. So Crazy Raccoon, very intelligent decision, immediately making up for that Shu mistake. In this next example, we're going to see another way to win the Ray trade. This is going to start by Stalker swinging around the corner using High Noon, and Crazy Raccoon are going to be able to disengage successfully. So we see Crazy Raccoon take a step back, take a step back, take a step back, and now we see Crazy Raccoon look at them posturing at the corner. They are ready to use this. They are doing the exact same play we saw on Runa Sapi. Disengage from a neutral or from an ultimate, back around the corner, and then as the other team creep closer, explode around with Orbital Ray. Makes a lot of sense. But Falcons, no slouches here. We're actually going to see both Rays come down pretty much immediately. You can see both teams are trying to do the exact same thing. Orisa's at the front of formation. Everyone trying to get in it. All of this. Likewise, when the Rays are this close, you're going to see both Orisas try and play to push people out of it. We're going to see Hanbin try and do that here to Chorong. So keep your eyes on Hanbin in all of this. You're going to see he actually manages to push and separate Chorong. In theory, this should mean they are winning the Ray trade because they've got a player out of the Ray. This makes Chorong very vulnerable. It also means there's now more complicated things for Crazy Raccoon to do because they're trying to push forward, but they also have to worry that Chorong doesn't die behind them. And in theory, makes it very difficult. Hanbin's made a good play here. But the real star of this fight is going to be the fact that Heesang has pressed for Blade, and Blade and Orbital Ray, a very good combo. We talked about High Noon isn't a great combo with it. Blade 100% is. And you can see as these two Rays are on top of each other, it's going to allow Heesang just to get a crazy Blade, look like a star, big frag movie moment here. And that's obviously another good way to win a mirrored Ray situation. If you're just able to one-up the ults and use another ult, Terra Surge, Blade, both very good for this. Even Rally can be used for this as well. Very good. Proper did have Blade, but he didn't actually have it at the start of the fight. It was about like 94%. So just the chance that they were able to drop both of those ults. And you see Crazy Raccoon, they're expecting the Ray trade on this corner. Because if we go back to the start, what we can see is Heesang wastes no time at all, right? He sees that they're there, he dashes through immediately on the Ray timing, drops the Blade, and will be able to get the cleanup here. So Crazy Raccoon, good awareness of the situation, the type of fight they're going to be running into, and managed to one-up the ults. Now we'll look at our last example. It's going to be a Ray trade again. What we're going to see is Fielder's going to try and start the fight with Rally. And I think the idea here, the fight plan for Falcons is we're going to rally first, walk forward, not super commit, force them to press Orbital Ray. They will push forward, probably onto point with Orbital Ray, and then Chio can Orbital Ray back. We have the later Orbital Ray. Everything will look really good. But unfortunately, crucial mistake happens for Falcons. So as we see the fight play out, keep your eyes on this corner. We're going to see the rally start from Fielder. You notice as well, Fielder is not going to commit Bash. Because if he commits Bash, obviously, it's kind of a one-way trip, right? You have to need a lot of help to get yourself out of that situation if you don't find immediate value. So Fielder's actually going to save for Bash, which I think is why he's planning to go backwards here. You can also look at Stalker and Chio's position. It doesn't look like they're really ready to push in this. Probably also, to be fair, better if the ring is in this position rather than here so the front line can use it more. But either way, it looks very much like they're setting up this play. They're going to try and go around the corner. They're going to get that Ray back, but Jumbin makes the crucial play. He hits the spin and he boops Fielder just the wrong side of the wall. And as soon as this happens, look how quickly Crazy Raccoon spot. Now they've got their isolated player. They're screaming his name. Kill the brig, kill the brig, kill the brig, kill the brig. Fielder tries to bash out, but he's body blocked. They try and turn it still with this Orbital Ray and Terra Surge combo. And to be fair to Hampin, it's going to do pretty significant damage. And they're going to be able to kill Lip off it and turn it into a massive dogfight. But a massive dogfight when in reality it should have been 2 support ults versus just 1. And they had Terra Surge. And it was only High Noon. This should have been a slam dunk for Falcons in what was a crucial 5th and deciding round on Flashpoint. And remember, if Falcons won this one, this was map 4 and they were up 2-1, they would have secured Stockholm right here, right now, if they were able to win this point, and they could have got off to a much better start here. But this crucial catch, whether you want to call it a fielder mistake or a jump in play, probably a little bit of both, absolutely crucial. And you can see something you quite often see in these type of metas, where it says one brawl comp versus another brawl comp, is individual mistakes can really cost teams because you're just playing big, long ult fights a lot of the times, and these small errors where you mess up your ult advantage situation can cost you points, they can cost you maps, and they can ultimately cost you series. Hopefully, if you weren't convinced at the start of the video that you need to worry about Ray, you are now convinced you should indeed be worried about Ray, because it's going to be absolutely pivotal as we get into some of these crucial final games of OWCS before we go to Stockholm. And if Juno still meta, it's going to be crucial at Stockholm as well. So I think the big takeaways here, the important things to remember is it's very much a team ult. Everyone gets the benefit of it, so you want to make sure your formation is stacked, you are in the Ray, you're moving forward as a team. Your tank being in the Ray is so important. The fact that your tank has cooldowns as well, also important. Help keep your team in the Ray if you have a tank, and make sure everyone is in there getting value out of it. Likewise, don't forget that they have Ray. Always be aware if the other team has Ray, so if you are pushing them or chasing kills because you have an advantage and they have a Ray to turn with, always be ready for this. Don't get caught off guard because the Ray is so powerful, you will just die to it. You will cost your team important situations. And remember all the different plan options we saw. Even though we didn't see many examples of it, there's always the option just to disengage it, to walk away, use your speed defensively, whether that's Lucio's speed or Juno's hyper ring. Just leave the Orbital Ray, get yourself around a corner, and try and go back with one of your own ults. If you want to mirror it, remember it's super important we are in formation, we have cooldowns, and we're going to try and all stay in it. Also, if you have another ult to throw in, you can one-up the ults, like we saw with that Heesang combo he did with the Ray. Then that's a great way to win that fight as well. So keep all those things in mind. Juno is still a very new hero. We're seeing the meta and the way the pros are playing her develop every game, every weekend, so I'm excited to see more progress. If you like the video, be sure to subscribe, follow the channel. You can check me out on Twitch as well. You can watch live. I'll be watching all of the games for OWCS live this weekend too, so check all that out. Let me know what you thought of the video, and I'll see you in the next one.